Radio Football Show with the Taxi Centre. Listen live weeknights from 5. Talking Scottish football first. Let's go.
Well, what did you think? Offside, onside, too close to call? Hearts head coach Robbie Neilson thought his team was beaten by the officials at Celtic Park last night rather than Kyogo's 14th goal of the season. Ange Postecoglou said you can twist the story any way you like, and Celtic should have won more comfortably than 1-0. Stephen Craigan, what did you think of that goal?
Well, Scottish football never disappoints, Rob. There's always a talking point, there's always a headline. I think the first thing that jumped to mind as soon as I watched it was we need VAR in this country as soon as possible. It stops the conspiracy theories. It stops people getting upset with each other, falling out. If we can get to the bottom and get the right decisions, I think that's the only way forward. And
of course the night before it was Ryan Porteous on Ryan Kent. Correct. And that penalty 5 minutes from time as Rangers won 1-0. So they've both won 1-0 on consecutive nights. But as Craig says, VAR would have sorted it. We're going to hear in the course of the show from the Rangers manager Giovanni van Bronckhorst. Today he was backing the introduction from next season. I think it is going to be happening for next season as long as the clubs vote for it. The playback system that is VAR, which originated in his native Netherlands. And it's high time, isn't it, the Scottish football caught up on the technology front?
Absolutely, because the discussion has been, since VAR came in, the cost. That's been the only stumbling block, the only talking point. I think we're at a stage now when you look around the major leagues in European football. I haven't looked beyond world football, but certainly in European football, Rob, it's in the top leagues. And if we want to be branded as one of the top leagues and we want to associate ourselves with one of the top leagues, then we have to get it in as soon as possible. We have to help referees out. You know, we watched the 2 incidents on Wednesday night and Thursday night, and we get 7-8 angles off it at a game. Sorry, if you're sitting in the house watching it, or if you're working at a game, you get 7 or 8 angles. The referee gets a split second. So why not give them an opportunity to go and see what we can see and what the punters at home can see, and then come to the right conclusion? Give them a second look to get it right. I've no doubt the referees are crying out for help. They want it in as soon as possible, because I'm sure the flack that they're taking, they would love to have it removed from them, and they can get to the bottom of it and get more decisions right.
It's Stephen Craigan and Rob McLean, and it will be Neil Alexander with us, the former Rangers and Hearts goalkeeper, will be with us shortly. Won't you, Neil, if you're listening in the car and getting ever closer to the Go Radio studios? 0808 17 17 700 if you want to join the football discussion, talking football. That's what we are doing between now and 7 o'clock. It's Friday, which is unusual for Craigs and I. If we get thrown in the course of the next couple of hours, you'll understand we're not off and on a Friday. But we're looking ahead to the weekend. We're looking back, of course, on that win for Celtic last night, with controversial, the word attached to it, possibly on the back of the goal, the much debated goal. That freeze frame is being sort of photoshopped everywhere, isn't it? As both sets of supporters try to twist it their way. There was a fairly animated reaction to the goal being given from Robbie Neilson, and he spoke afterwards.
It's offside. The linesman was going to make a decision. It's a key decision in the game. Doesn't he make it? You know, I can't really say any more than that. He's there to make the decisions. He's looking straight along the line. You can see he's offside, and he doesn't put his flag up, and that's the disappointing thing. Yeah, he's ahead of the ball. He's offside.
The funereal tones of Robbie Neilson. He really took that badly last night, didn't he? Although it may be that can maybe camouflaged for him some great chances that Hearts had second half to equalise.
I think if Hearts had equalised in the game, I don't think Robbie would have been as strong in his criticism of the officials. I have to say, first of all, what a wonderful game. You know, we've campaigned often enough that our best game should be on the TV. If we want to showcase the league that we have and the quality we have, we need to get the best games on TV, and certainly Celtic Hearts is one of our top games in the country. I just felt the tempo of the game, the quality of football. Hearts had to hang in there at times. They had to ride their luck, but they carried a threat. The two things you need when you go to Celtic Park: you need to be able to carry a threat, which usually comes with pace and energy, and you have to be good with possession when you land on the ball. You've got to be able to build your play. And probably that's something they can improve on, and something that is work in progress. But I thought, first of all, terrific game, really enjoyed the game, so both teams deserve a lot of credit. Robbie is frustrated because he will be looking back and thinking we could have had something from that game. I wouldn't say should have, but the big moment he feels went against him. I think if he had lost 4-0, I don't think this moment would be talking about this moment. The fact that it was the definitive moment in the game and he feels it went against him. My point on it is I have not witnessed or viewed one camera angle or one picture that shows me clearly that Kyogo was onside or offside. There's no angle. I'd run right along the line of the ball. There's no one looking at Tony Ralston's foot and putting the camera right along. And this is where VAR would come into it and it would have it done properly. I know people are drawing lines on Twitter, thick ones, thin ones, the lines are bent with, so I don't mean it's hard to take it serious, but there's nothing for me definitively to say is offside. And people have said, I've said that to someone today and they said, well, he looks offside. I said, well, I've just checked the laws of the game and looks offside or looks isn't in it. It has to be offside or not. And Robbie actually contradicted himself slightly in that interview he had, because he said the referee's assistant's looking down the line of the ball. He then said he's slightly ahead of the ball. He then said he's beyond the ball. Neil Alexander's just walked in, so we'll get an opinion of him soon.
Yeah, well, he's not renowned for his pace, but
well, that's two of us, Rob.
He's done, three of us actually. He has done a little mini sprint into the studio. I'm going to give him 5 seconds to get his breath back, but being an athlete, he won't really require that. He is, of course, the former Hearts goalkeeper, the former Rangers goalkeeper. And your old team, well, we've just been listening and you'll have heard the clip before. I would have reckoned Robbie Neilson
I was listening in the car,
was a bit cheesed off
understandably
about that ruling last night. What did you think?
I thought it was offside, quite blatantly offside as well. And I feel sorry for Robbie because they've gone there, and Parkhead's a hard place to go at the best of times. When you don't get the decisions, you don't get the breaks, it's even harder. I think Celtic first half were the better team, but I think Hearts second half came out and put a really good performance in and possibly could have deserved a draw out of the game. With the work rate that they've put in, Robbie will be very disappointed to take anything from the game. And I don't think there's any doubt about it. It's a clear offside. I don't know how the linesman's not spotting it. I know we spoke about VAR. I think if VAR had been here, which it will be next season, I think that it'd been clearly offside.
So you don't think it was too tight? One of those ones that you actually have to acknowledge a human error because actually it's a split second moment.
I think it's quite obvious because in the build up, he's a yard offside. He's a yard behind the defence even when the ball gets played across, and then when the ball gets played wide, he's still in an offside position, and he doesn't check and then go back in. He stays, and the Hearts defence don't drop that back and level with him. He's still half a yard, and I think it's quite obvious. I don't know how they've not spotted it.
My point is, there's no definitive angle that shows that he's offside. There's no camera angle in line with Tony
I don't think there
Ralston
needs to be. I think it's so obvious. I think it's so blatantly obvious that he's offside.
But the referee's assistant can't give it then. Robbie said in his interview he's looking down the line of the ball, and then he said a split second later he's ahead of the ball. So unless the referee's assistant is standing right behind Tony Ralston and looking when Tony Ralston makes contact with the ball, he can't put his flag up. Otherwise he's guessing.
Yeah, I totally understand that. If he's not absolutely 100% certain,
he's a yard ahead of the ball because he's running alongside. I was saying to Rob earlier, he's running alongside Tony Ralston. He's trying to keep up with him. Tony Ralston slows down to cross the ball. The referee's assistant keeps going. So by the time he turns back to get his flag up or have a look at it, he's now out of position to look down the line of the ball, which is why he can't give it. The referee can't give it because he thinks if the linesman's flag doesn't go up or my assistant's flag doesn't go up, I can't give it.
Yeah, and the referee's relying on his linesman.
Correct.
To make decisions. So I know
and he has to be in the right position.
The referee, but it really is a call of the linesman. But for my opinion, I think it's the wrong call.
What we need is VAR.
We do.
And actually, as recently as this afternoon, it was being put to the Rangers manager, Giovanni van Bronckhorst, whether the time is right. And we should catch up on the technology being used elsewhere.
I'm for VAR. You can have situations in games where it's very difficult for the ref to see, to make decisions of. So VAR is there to help, which is very important. Yeah, I'm from Holland. I think the VAR came from Holland. So it's fair to have the VAR for both sides really. And so I'm really for VAR next season. Because
these are things that, there will still be debates in football, and there are even with VAR implemented. We see it on a weekly basis. There will still be the talking points, but there are certain things that are factual. and that's one of them. And it can get a bit annoying when it's an armpit or a big toe or whatever that is the difference between onside and offside. But you seem to reckon, Neil, that had that been VAR'd last night, that would have been quite clear cut.
Yeah, definitely. You know, I do feel sorry for the referees. You know, they get a split second to make a decision. You know, they're only human beings at the end of the day. They do make mistakes, and you know, they need help. We've said this for years. They need help. And, you know, VAR will hopefully help them and clear up a lot of, you know, debates like this, but we'll have nothing to talk about then.
Exactly.
But I think it's become more rounded. You think what 2 years ago went down in the Premier League down south, and year on year, there's incidents arising, and then they're changing the laws of the game because they're thinking, well, we can't do that. So I think by the time we get it up here, it's been that long since it started. By the time we get it here, it should be almost perfect.
Yeah.
There still will be little indiscretions which we'll still argue about and people will fall out about, but I would imagine the decisions wouldn't be 100%, but they'll be as close as they can possibly get to being right all the time. Incidents like penalties and free kicks and handballs, whatever else comes into the VAR bracket, will be subjective. You know, the referee will be asked to go and have a look at certain things. If he doesn't think it's a penalty or he thinks it's a penalty, that will still be there. We'll still have slight debate. But certainly, you know, the quicker we get in here, the better for the game. And the standing in the game and how it stands around Europe.
We might get the cheaper version of what the VAR light maybe is.
We're going to water it down, of course we will.
No, us, yeah.
But I know that there are talks going on at the moment, and I think the clubs have to vote on it. But let's hope we can have it in time for next season. And I think that would be the plan in the Premiership at least, so that moments like last night can be sorted out once and for all. The arguing will continue, and certainly the arguing was continuing in terms of the two managers last night, because after Robbie Neilson had his say, this was the response from Ange Postecoglou.
The referee made the difference today. Is that the analysis, is it? Well, it's not my analysis. I think we were the better team. We deserved to win. James Forrest didn't have a chance. So if we're talking big moments, who had the more big moments? So you can talk around, you can manufacture a story any way you want. The reality of it is that we dominated that game of football. It's a 1-0 game. They're always in with a chance, which is fair enough. If we had been more ruthless in the front third, a different scoreline.
You can certainly twist the narrative, can't you? And even if you were to take out the goal, you look, I mean, I can remember at least probably 3 really good Hearts chances second half to score. But then, you know, you can turn it around and say, you can look at the James Forrest one close in. Yeah. You can look at other Celtic opportunities where they could have built on the goal they did get.
I said just before Neil came in, it's because the one single goal was the big moment that's frustrating Robbie Neilson. That's why, you know, I wouldn't say he feels he's closer, but they're separated by a goal he thinks is debatable. You know, he's angry, he's frustrated because he thinks if that isn't given, then, you know, for Celtic's domination and Celtic's play, they only managed to score one goal which he feels is offside. That's why Robbie Neilson was frustrated and angry. He wasn't saying they were the better team. He wasn't saying they had more possession, they had more chances. He was just saying the one moment in the game, the big moment where he wanted a little bit of support, or he felt that the assistant should have got it right. I think that's what's irking Robbie. That's what's frustrating him. There's no doubt Celtic were a better team. I think they had 69% possession. I think they
actually, Hearts were so much better than the last time they were at Celtic Park in the League Cup. And you know, he was obviously really pleased about that aspect. And, you know, they had really good chances to score, and that doesn't always happen.
That's a bit that'll be hurting him.
Yeah.
The fact that Stephen Kingsley had the header. I mean, he was 7 yards out and he's managed to put it wide somehow. Barry Mackay had the shot across goal. Craig Halkett, who you would normally think is good in the air, had a good chance as well. So if any of those go in, then I think Robbie's after-match press conference will be slightly different.
Yeah, and in a tight game, Celtic came through the previous night in a tight game at Easter Road. Rangers came through, and that's very often, Neil, the way it is.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing the commentary in the Rangers game, and you know, I was looking forward to it immensely. I thought this was going to be a cracker. You know, it was built up to be a really good game, and it did disappoint. You know, I was disappointed in the game. It was poor. The quality in the final third from both teams wasn't the best, but these are the games. These are tough games when you go to these stadiums. Easter Road on a midweek. They've just turned you over in a cup semi-final, so Rangers were going there looking to sort of avenge that in some way, and Hibs would have been full of confidence after beating Rangers, and you know, I was expecting a game full of goals, full of quality, but if I say it failed to live up to that. But Rangers got the decision on the night. They were the better team. They created some really good chances. Morelos should have scored before half time with his header 6 yards out, hits the target, he scored. Hibs never really caused Al McGregor any problems, to be honest, so I'd say Hibs were better second half, Rangers were better first half, but you know, it's a fantastic 3 points for Rangers because they didn't play well. They didn't play well at all. But you know, if you're going to win titles, these are the games that you have to dig in and get these results, and they did. So you know, the manager will be absolutely delighted. 3 wins out of 3.
Yeah, absolutely. That wasn't a great game, but last night's wasn't it? That was a great showcase for Scottish football. It's great that there were 3 nights of Scottish football on television, and certainly we'd be happy about anybody looking in on last night and saying, "Hey, that's Scottish football. That's good."
Yeah, because I mean, I'll be honest about Robbie. Probably in his younger days as a manager, he was a bit pragmatic. Going to bigger games and bigger stadiums, you think, you know, as a young manager, we've got to go, we've got to be hard to play against, we've got to. Whereas last night, he picked the team, I think he said in his pre-match interview 4-4-2, Aaron McAniff playing as a second striker, almost playing off midfield, and he thought, you know, we're going to have a go at it, we're playing pace in the team, we're going to have energy in the team, we're going to take risks now and again, and I thought, right, okay, you know, let's see if that actually comes to fruition on the pitch. And it did. You know, they could have lost by 3 or 4-0. They could have nicked the game in the end. You know, if Stephen Kingsley scores in suddenly there in the front foot, Jota's off the pitch, Stephen Welsh goes off the pitch, you think, right, okay, then if Hearts had a goal with 10 minutes to go, they'd have been the team in the ascendancy. So I think it just shows where Hearts have came from as a team from that game you talked about earlier in the Premier Sports Cup when they lost 3-1, 3-2 possibly. But
3-2, yeah.
But let's be honest, it could have been anything in the first half. Celtic were absolutely dynamite in the first half. So to see where they've come from and the fact that they're going to go to Glasgow and put up a fight, the bigger frustration for Robbie is that he will come away thinking we should have nicked something there. Yes, they had chances, Ned, but towards the end of the game, Hearts were the team you thought if there's going to be a goal, it was going to go their way.
You're listening to Stephen Craigan, Neil Alexander, Rob McLean, the Go Radio Football Show with the Taxi Centre on a Friday, heading for the weekend, heading for another hefty helping of Scottish football. Looking back on last night, of course, we'll hear more from Ange Postecoglou, his reflections, Robbie Nielsen as well on that big game, Celtic 1, Hearts 0. And Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, we've heard him already on VAR, we'll hear him on a variety of other subjects as well, looking ahead to Rangers match against Dundee tomorrow. What are you thinking about the Premiership placings at the moment? What are you thinking about the prospect of VAR ending some of the talking points in Scottish football?
The Go Radio Football Show with the TaxiCentre.com. Your exclusive taxi trade savings are waiting on you. Let's go.
Friday's Go Radio Football Show with the Taxi Centre, former Rangers and Hearts goalkeeper Neil Alexander with us, Stephen Craigan here as well, Rob McLean in the chair. And looking ahead to the weekend, it does feel like we're in the midst of a non-stop Scottish football spell at the moment, with the midweek games being spread from Tuesday to Thursday. There's of course Championship football tonight. It's a cracking game actually, isn't it, Craig? Inverness against Kilmarnock. The Championship must be the best league in the world, the most exciting league in the world, because 2 points separate the top 5, 1 point separates the bottom 5.
Well, you know, particularly with Kilmarnock, because everybody thought because they're automatically being relegated, well, they'll be the favourites to go back up. That certainly hasn't proved the case. You know, they've found wins hard to come by at times. Teams have raised their game. Inverness, you know, are right up there considering where they were last year. Raith Rovers always a good team to watch, and you've got to say the most impressive team in that division I always think are Arbroath. Yeah. The only part-time team, looking down, the only part-time team now in the league, yet they punch above their weight. They're up there promotion. What are they? 2 points off the top. You know, Dick Campbell does an incredible job. You'd imagine even just by looking at that just now, Dick's first thing is don't get relegated. Well, looking at the table just now, they're certainly not going to get relegated, and that's after 15 games. So they have a real chance to push themselves into the playoffs. And at the bottom, John Hughes takes over at Dunfermline, bottom of the table, win 2 games, and now they're sitting 6th.
Yeah.
Mental how it works out.
Yeah, maybe the tightest league in the world was the description I was looking for. Maybe it wouldn't be the most exciting league in the world, but certainly plenty of exciting games in it, with all those teams tightly packed together. And it is a league of 2 halves. In the Premiership at the weekend, Aberdeen St Mirren tomorrow, Hibs Motherwell, Rangers Dundee, St Johnstone Ross County, and on Sunday Dundee United Celtic. That's 12 at Tannadice, and Livingston play Hearts at 3 o'clock. Let's get Craig in Cumbernauld into the discussion. Hi, Craig.
Hi, Rob, Neil and Craig. How you doing?
Good, thanks, Craig.
All well, thanks, Craig. What would you like to talk about?
Well, 2 points really. Firstly, I want to make a point about VR and the game tomorrow. I have said for a while, I think VR is a great idea. I think when we first bring it in, we will experience the same kind of teething problems they did down south. But I also have said for a long time now that in the meantime, my biggest issue is I don't feel like linesmen and fourth officials do enough to help the referee in games. You know, week in, week out, you see decisions being made where the linesman has actually got a far better view of it than the referee. Sometimes it's right in front of their face, and they're not helping the ref whatsoever. They're not doing anything, and the ref's getting the decision wrong because he's not getting any help. Now, last night, I thought it was offside, but I would say that, being a Rangers fan, I suppose. But in my opinion, I think it was offside. However, I can't argue that Celtic deserve to win. But, decisions like that will be resolved by VAR, hopefully. I just worry about, in the meantime, because for years we've seen how many decisions that have been, from bad to the absolute farcical at times. And I think part of it is because linesmen seem too scared to do their jobs and help the referees.
Yeah, I must say, Craig, that's a real bugbear of mine as well, watching lots of football and just seeing sometimes assistant and fourth officials, Neil, they're just turning away, not wanting to know, keeping the flag down, waiting for somebody else to make the decision for them.
Yeah, it's almost like they're scared to make the decision because they know they're going to get criticised, whereas, do your job to the best of your ability. Yeah, you're only human, you might make mistakes, but if you see it, call it. You're talking about managers' careers, because that can be the difference between a manager losing his job or keeping his job, or the points that might win you a title or something like that. So it's we're screaming out for VAR, and probably there's an instant in every game where VAR could come in and help the referees, and that's what we want to do, help clear up these decisions that at this minute are causing a lot of debate that potentially they could be getting wrong.
Yeah, I mean, Craigs, you've got a team of 4 there, but not if only one of them is actually actively involved in the decision-making process, and the man in the middle is not getting much help from the other 3.
I think the fourth official is quite content to get involved when it's in his area. I think once it goes the other side of the pitch and down the side, I think they're quite happy to step back and not get involved in it. What I would say on referees' assistants is, unless they are 100% convinced that they know what happened, they can't put their flag up or they can't draw the attention to the referee. You have to say that. And I remember speaking to Stuart Dougal about it. I said, you must know. He said, listen, we don't give things unless we're 100%. So unless they see it, like last night, I know Craig said he thinks it's offside, as did Neil. I just think the referee's assistant's position is a yard ahead of the ball. So he has no idea if Kyogo is in line with Tony Ralston or not, because he's out of position to see that. If he's standing directly behind Tony Ralston, he will see it clearly. And if he thinks he's offside, then his flag has to go up. That's why I don't think he put his flag up last night. Plus, I also know some referees have said in the past, I don't know what happens now, I'm in charge, don't put your flag up unless I want to draw attention to you. So don't put your flag up, I'll deal with it. If I want help, I'll come to you. So that's some referees taking
I think
control.
The communication's got to be better. There's the 4 of them, obviously the fourth official, he's in communication with the referee and his 2 linesmen. So how can't the linesman tell the referee and tell the fourth official what he saw and why he let the goal stand, and then the fourth official explained to Robbie Nielsen, and then that sort of qualms any questions that Robbie Nielsen has. There's obviously no conversations because Robbie's still angry after the game, and he's coming out saying, I'm angry, I tried to speak to the ref and he wasn't giving me any answers. If the fourth official has a word with Robbie on the sideline just after the goal, said this is why the goal stood, that clears it all up, then maybe Robbie can just get on with it. Because there's not that explanation, Robbie's angry.
Yeah, I do feel for the fourth official, mind you. I wouldn't take that job for a large salary, I don't think, because it's just 90 minutes of total earache, isn't it, from the 2 managers. It's almost like you're the psychotherapist in the middle between
you're a referee in a boxing match almost.
I know, exactly. What was point 2, Craig?
Yeah, well, point 2 sort of on tomorrow on the wider points and in the Rangers right now. I think obviously I was delighted on Thursday night to get the 3 points. I think we've now won 4 leagues on the bounce. That's a real positive. For a team who over the past week and a half since the League Cup semi-final defeat has very much was as you would expect after a poor performance like that. And a lot of people, I listened earlier in the week, and people are talking about Celtic being favourites for the title. I don't agree with, but I think
I'm going to lose you just now, Craig, and we'll get you back on, hopefully with a better line. But I think what Craig was about to go on to say there was that despite all those talking about the balance of power shifting in the title race, he obviously is convinced that Rangers are on track, and certainly it's an impressive run of results. It's only 3 games, but Giovanni van Bronckhorst is off and running with a winning beginning to his time at Ibrox.
Well, it's a difficult time to take over when the team are doing well, they're top of the table, the expectations are high. So when he took over, the last thing he wants to do is upset the cohesion. You know, he doesn't want to start coming in and making lots of changes, trying to give the players lots of information, and suddenly they get on the pitch looking a little bit confused. You want to try and keep it as simple as possible, try and keep what they've been doing to a certain extent. But I think in all 3 games he's changed things tactically slightly. You know, particularly against Sparta Prague, he played with 2 holding midfield players. Glenn Kamara played 10 yards deeper normally than what he does. And I think that was all based on watching them against Hibs in the Premier Sports Cup semi-final. When they get overrun in midfield, he get caught in the counter-attack and the centre-halves were exposed. So he thought, rather than playing 1 holding midfield playing 2 ahead of it, I'm going to play 2 deeper. And I just feel as if Glenn Kamara's actually got better playing in that role. Against Livingston, he changed and he put Scott Arfield in, he said after the game, because there's gaps in behind. There's gaps in Livingston back 4 that Scott Arfield could exploit. And I thought, well, that's good. And then the other night, the full-backs played a little bit deeper.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing I saw from the game the other night. And James Tavernier and Boran Barisic hardly crossed the halfway line. Now, we're used to seeing them in the final third, putting balls into the box with the opposite one maybe being at the back post. They hardly got in the final third on Wednesday night. So they were obviously, they've spoke about it. He wants to be a bit more sure defensively. He knows he's got ability up front. He knows he's got players who can hurt teams and score goals. I think he's just maybe looking to shoot up that defence, because probably what he saw at Hampden when he watched against Hibs, that probably gave him a little fright. You know, how poor they were defensively, three down after 40 minutes. And he's probably thought, right, that's the first thing I need to address. Get the defence tightened up, because we know if we can keep clean sheets, we've got players at the other end of the pitch who can win us games. And that's what happened the other night. Ryan Kent, fantastic, never really got into the game, but there was a few occasions in the second half where he got the ball and he drove at the Hibs defence and got crosses in the box. And then on the third occasion he cut inside and a little bit of skill, and he was too quick for Ryan Porteous, and obviously the penalty came about. So, you know, that's what Rangers need to concentrate on, getting the ball to the flair players, let them do their job, be solid defensively, and you know, I think they'll be decent going forward now.
It's a big decision that, though, isn't it, to say to your fullbacks, right, you're staying back, we're looking for more insurance defensively.
Not really, because the evidence was against Hibs.
Yeah.
You know, they won't do it every game. I think, you know, certain games will say, well, listen, they don't have the same threat up front, they don't have the same pace, they're not going to try and play the same way.
Right, so a game by game thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So I think he's changed his tactics every game, which means he's not just saying, this is how we're playing, we're not budging, we're not moving, this is what we're doing. You know, that's very one-dimensional, I think, at times, particularly when he's a new manager coming in, still trying to get to know the players. So he's probably basing a lot of it on what happened against Hibs at Hampden Park.
Totally. Yeah.
So that's why the other night saying, well, we can't go to Easter Road and we can't have Borna Barisic and James Tavernier overlapping and underlapping, and suddenly one ball down the side exposes Calvin Bassey against Martin Boyle, or exposes Kevin Nisbet against Conor Golson. One slip, one moment of brilliance, we could be a goal down, and it's hard to come back from. So basically what he said is, we'll go there, we'll be compact, we'll be hard to play against, exactly what Neil said. When it's on to go forward, be selective. If you think there's a good chance to overlap, go and do it. But James Tavernier, if you go Borna Barisic, you're staying as a third centre half. If Borna Barisic goes, you're coming in staying as a third centre half, James Tavernier. So just little tactical things. And I would imagine the players will think, all right, okay, this is slightly different. So it's always fresh and keeps players on their toes. And he's changed the team, he's changed formation, he's changed his tactics. And I think that so far it's worked. It'll be interesting to see when they've got Pittodrie away. This month they've still got to go to Celtic Park in early January, and they've got to go to Hearts in a couple of weeks' time. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of tactical plan he puts up there.
Because it's been such a big part of Rangers' success.
Yeah, I
hasn't
totally
it?
agree with what Stephen's saying.
The assists that have come from both Tavernier and Barisic.
And I think you'll find Rangers versus Dundee tomorrow at Ibrox. I would imagine maybe Dundee will sit in a bit more and Rangers will have a lot of the ball. So you might find tomorrow, Stephen said, it'll change a little bit, and you might find James Tavernier and Boran Barisic getting forward a bit more and getting into them sort of forward more areas and putting crosses into the box. But it probably will be a game-to-game thing. And I would have thought they maybe got a fright, as I said, in the semi-final. Martin Boyle and Kevin Nisbet tore Rangers' defence apart, and I think they might have been scared of that. So he's probably saying, I want my fullbacks to sit in, let's be a tight, compact four, and let's not give them anything.
He was talking today, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, about Conor Goldson. There's been the rumour machine has been in operation today, suggesting that he turned down the offer of an extension at Rangers. He was wanting to head back to English football. This was the manager's response.
No. I spoke to Ross about it today. He's still talking with his agents, so nothing new. I think we have to say still on speaking terms with the agent, so we have to wait. Of course, I saw reports he rejected the offer, but that is untrue. They're still talking, so hopefully we can have some more news in the coming weeks or months.
How important do you think it is, Neil, to hang on to Connor Goldson? I mean, obviously, it depends on how much money he's looking for. That's a big factor in the equation.
Yeah, and obviously Rangers have a strict wage structure that they want to stick by, and if they think that Connor Goldson's asking for too much, then they stick by that and they reject it or whatever he's looking for. But he's a big player for Rangers. He's hardly missed a game. He was a huge player last season. He started this campaign a wee bit inconsistent, which is a bit worrying. Obviously came out with the comments after the semi-final again, which is worrying. You just don't know if his head's in it. But being out of contract and that can take your concentration away. It is a worrying time for players when they don't know where their future is. So that might be in the back of his mind, affecting his performances. So the sooner they get it tied up, either way, if they decide that he's staying or he's going to go, then probably the better for both the player and the club.
Because he is the constant, isn't he, in central defence for Rangers? I mean, currently Balogun is out on the way back. Hilander's been out for a long time. Katic is out away on loan. He is one of the first names on that team sheet, isn't he, Connor Goldson? What are you thinking, Craigs, about what's going on at the moment? And is he being? Can you see it in his game at the moment that in his head he's wondering what's happening here?
I think sometimes because there's speculation around a player, every time he makes a mistake or he's in a wrong position, people automatically think it's because he's thinking about his contract. He's out of contract, it's affecting his game. It's not. Sometimes you just end up in wrong positions, but because the speculation is going around about it and he hasn't signed his contract. And I said a couple of weeks ago, I didn't mind him coming out and questioning players' hunger, because quite clearly something needed to happen after that Hibs game. Something needed to be said to try and spark people into action, because when he played Sparta Prague a few days later, it was a completely different team, as in energy-wise and appetite. Everybody then is focusing on, are they hungry? Are they going to run about? Do they have the desire? So he brought everybody to the fore. And if anybody didn't show that on the night, fingers would have been pointed at them. So I don't mind as an experienced player coming out and trying to cajole his teammates. He was probably, it sounded, during the interview, he was trying to deflect it away from himself. But sometimes you need the older players in the dressing room to say something.
But I think these things can be said in-house. I don't think he needed to say that in public, because it just sort of has questions then asked to every single individual. And there's people in that team, and I know boys like Al McGregor, Stephen Davis, they're 100% focused, they're 100% hungry to win everything. Every day in training they turn up, they give everything. So, he's questioned them, people who I know that doesn't apply to. So, if he's got them issues, he needs to call it that in the dressing room, behind closed doors. I would imagine there would have been team meetings. I don't think you need to become in public with things like that. I just don't think it does anyone any favours.
I'm not sure it would have the same effect. If you have it in house, listen, we've had many arguments in a dressing room, you walk away, everybody shakes hands and gets on with it. Whereas I think that left that lingering. He probably wasn't talking about Al McGregor and Stephen Davis, so it must have been a few he was wanting to have a little. It was just getting to him, he thought something needs to be said.
He wanted it out there, didn't he?
He wanted it out there just to try and spark people. I think he wanted it out there to try and spark people into action, because they were so disappointed with the result that they could have got the cup final. If Rangers go on and win the league title this season and win the Scottish Cup, people will look back in that moment and think that was the moment where things may have turned a little bit, where he was brave enough to say it or stupid enough to say it. Who knows come the end of the season.
Alan McGregor was actually asked his reaction to it, wasn't it? And he said, I don't read any papers and I don't hear things. I think that was one of his quotes as well. But I mean, there would have been a pretty spectacular reaction to that, wouldn't there?
Yeah,
listen,
I don't think...
You know that Rangers dressing room.
I think there would have been a lot of players who wouldn't have been happy with what he said. Because I know the type of player that you need to be to play for Rangers. You've got to have a very strong mentality. There's no way you cross that white line on a Saturday or a Sunday and don't give 100% and don't go out to win and do your best. Obviously things happen, and obviously it doesn't always happen, but I just think in a defeat like that, I think it's up to the press officer or one of the coaching staff or the manager to pick the right player to do the right interview after that game. And I would have gone with a more experienced Al McGregor or Stephen Davis, who's not going to say anything controversial,
or the
who's
captain.
just going to say the right thing, or the captain, who's going to say the right thing for that right moment. It was a poor performance, really bad defeat, and on top of that, you put your Connor Goldson's going out there and he's making controversial statements. I just don't think they needed it at that time. And as Stephen said, it might give them that little kick up the backside that they needed, but I still think you could have that kick up the backside in the dressing room or in the training ground by the right people. And if Connor Goldson's got a problem with someone, he needs to deal with that, pull the person aside, or have a word with the manager and say, you need to have a go at this person, he needs a wee kick at the backside because he's not giving us what we want.
Well, we certainly weren't complaining about it. It's done a fair bit of media mileage since those quotes from Conor Golson, and Rangers have bounced back, of course, both in Europe and domestically, and they retain their 4-point lead at the top of the Premiership. We're talking football till 7.
The Go Radio Football Show with the taxicentre.com. Don't miss out on huge savings on your new taxi. Available exclusively to the taxi trade. Let's go!
Regular traffic and travel updates. It's just a shame Neil Alexander wasn't listening to them earlier on, and he might have been here on time. But the former Rangers and Hearts goalkeeper is with us on the Go Radio Football Show on a Friday. Stephen Craigan was present and correct, and half an hour in advance of the start of the show.
So I'll be getting full pay tonight.
I wouldn't go that far. We've still got an hour or so to go, and there could be fines to come for you. Don't worry about it. Right, into the weekend we are heading. 4 games tomorrow in the Premiership and 2 on Sunday. It's Rangers Dundee Ibrox tomorrow. Neil's going to be watching that one, I think. Aberdeen against St Mirren, Hibs against Motherwell, St Johnstone, Ross County. Craigs, you'll be on duty in Perth for that one. Dundee United Celtic is the early game on Sunday. And Livingston Hearts is 3 o'clock. Hearts, of course, having played last night and lost last night, and 1-0 Celtic it was, 1-0 Rangers the previous evening at Easter Road, and 36 plays 32 at the top of the Premiership at the moment, and just signs maybe, Craigs, that the top 2 are starting to pull away.
Yeah, particularly Hearts losing last night. They lost at Motherwell a couple of weeks ago as well, so there's just games that if a Hearts or a Hibs or an Aberdeen are to stay within a title race deep into the season, they have to win games when they're not playing well. Neil just touched on it there about Rangers on Wednesday. Didn't play well at Easter Road. Hibs probably weren't much better, but Rangers found a way to win. Whereas Hearts, if things aren't going well, they can't or find a way to win. They didn't do it at Pittodrie. I think Hearts have only won 2 away league games this season, which would have been Dundee United. Well, I think Dundee United was the last one anyway that they won. So that was the 28th of August. So you can't go that length of time away from home and not winning games. You need to pick up points when things aren't going your way. And they won't get it easy at Livingston tomorrow.
No.
Now, I know Livingston haven't been in great form. It's strangely, Livingston have only won 1 home league game all season.
And that used to be the strong point, didn't it?
And that was against Celtic, which is incredible. People have this myth about the surface and how they have an advantage, whereas teams have now seemed to have worked it out and go there and are getting up better results. But the one thing you get with Livingston, hard work, it'll be a physical game, and Davy Martindale will be desperate to turn around after you were at the game Wednesday night when they didn't play particularly well against Aberdeen. So Hearts won't get it their own way there.
And the earlier game, of course, Dundee United against Celtic, and Ange Postecoglou's team looking to keep up this very strong domestic run. They've lost only 2 of their last 15. Both those games were against Leverkusen in the Europa League. They're only drop points in that spell at home to Livingston, where of course they missed a late penalty in the game. That since the end of September. Big win for them last night, but at a cost. They've got a few injuries.
Again, that's for us a good sign of resilience, because we obviously lost some key players during the game, and it's Carl Starfeld's first game for 5 weeks, Tommy Rogic's first game for 4 or 5, and Montgomery first game for 4 or 5. So the fact that they were able to see out the game was positive, but obviously we've picked up a couple of injuries. I don't know the extent. We'll find out. I'm hoping it's not too serious. Tony's probably the one that's most concerned, because for him to come off, I'd assume it's something significant, but we won't know.
Yeah, Tony Ralston injured last night, but Jota as well. He didn't really mention Jota there, suggesting Neil that Ralston was the most serious of the injuries, but it didn't look good for Jota. I mean, it looked like a hamstring, didn't it?
It did. The signs straight away when when a player holds the back of his leg, it's hamstring, and they can usually be 3-4 weeks minimum. So if he's fighting fit and can play, then that's a huge boost to him. Ralston's been excellent, and totally deserved his Scotland call-up this season. So he could be a big blow. And obviously Welsh as well. So defensively, they're going to need a bit of cover. But that's why these teams have big squads. And hopefully they'll have boys to come in and fill in. And, hopefully it won't affect them too much. But I will say Ralston is a blow, because he has been exceptional this season so far.
You were making the point about Jota, that even if it was a mild one and it was only a couple of weeks, that's still quite a few games.
It's 4
because
games.
There are so many going on.
4 games. I mean, if he's 2.5 weeks from Thursday night, he can miss 5 games. Because it's so congested in that space of time. So what you would say is over the last couple of months, he's probably been the best player in the league. He's the one player where you think, whoa, he's got something particularly when he first came in, he was a bit sluggish, and you think, well, he hasn't got up to speed. Once he's got up to speed, he's lightning quick. He can, how quick he is in transition from defence to attack when he picks up the ball. Can go inside, outside. He scored a couple of goals, assists. So for Celtic to lose him, particularly in the first part of the season, I think Kyogo was probably their spark. He was the one that was bringing them to life. I think Jota is now took that mantle on. I think he's the one player now that brings him to life. An opposition will fear.
I don't think they'll even risk him. If he's 50-50, 60-40 to play, he's such a big player. I think they'll think, well, do you know what? If he misses the Dundee United game and then he's fully fit for the rest of the games, we'll do that rather than try and risk him for one game and have him out for 4 or 5 weeks. So they might play on the side of caution with this one because he is such a big player. They might feel like, well, we can go to Dundee United without him and still hopefully get the result.
And would you agree with Craigs that is he the best player in Scottish football at the moment?
Definitely. Yeah. Definitely, he's been outstanding. Yeah, as I say, he had a wee bit of a slow start, but obviously it's difficult for foreign players coming into the country to get up to speed and, settle into a club. And, as the weeks have gone on, he's got better and better, and he's got a fantastic partnership with the Celtic forward players, whichever he plays, he's phenomenal. Some of the things he's done already has been exceptional. So, Celtic, will do well to get him tied up under a contract.
I just look at that front. I'm saying front five. James Forrest played last night and was good, but you look at Rogic, he makes him better straight away. Turnbull becomes better when Rogic is there. McGregor becomes even better when Rogic is there. Furuhashi can make runs because he knows Rogic can find him, and Jota. So that kind of McGregor, Turnbull, Rogic, Furuhashi and Jota, that's a big five. The sixth one, Forrest, his form's up and down. Abada's form's up and down. He's only 19. Mikey Johnson, can he nail that down? So, when they're in full flow, a couple of times they broke last night from the edge of their own box. It was 1 touch, 2 touch, and within a matter of seconds they were on the edge of Hearts' box, and it was just so free flowing and so entertaining, so open. So, when you've got a good player like Tom Rogic, I think he clicks it all together because he takes the ball anywhere. Turnbull can take the ball anywhere. He can find people. And I'd said to you before, it's amazing how many times good players pass to good players. Turnbull looks for Rogic. Rogic looks for Furuhashi. That little triangles, they always look for each other because they trust each other. They know they're good and they're in the same wavelength. And when that all works out together, they really are good to watch.
The rejuvenation of Rogic has been pretty spectacular, hasn't it? It looked like he was heading for semi-retirement in the Middle East.
Yeah, and it's probably helped having the manager coming in, and he's probably given him a new lease of life. I was just about to say that I think middle to front, Celtic are looking exceptionally good. I think obviously defensively there's still a few question marks, and we spoke about it earlier. Robin Nielsen set up his Hearts team to have a go at Celtic, and he was probably thinking we can get at this back four. If we go aggressive there and we have a go and we press them, there's mistakes can be made. Obviously they've got to be solid at the back, which they are. Hearts defensively were very good the other night, and obviously got a fantastic goalkeeper in Craig Gordon. But I would imagine Hearts would have fancied themselves get at that Celtic defence. There's maybe an error in them and we'll maybe get chances.
But they done okay, didn't they?
They done
two centre halves.
Yeah, they did do very well.
Who at times are isolated 1v1. Yeah. And even with Ginelli's pace, I thought Welsh and Starfelt done really well against them.
Yeah, I mean, Hearts, had 2 shots on target, and I think Celtic coped very well. Celtic had 25 shots. You just see how the game's gone, majority of the possession. So
midfield to front, are they better than Rangers at the moment, Celtic?
At this minute in time, yes. And that's just on current form. Obviously, I watched the game on Wednesday night, and I've seen Rangers quite a lot this season. And, listen, Hibs made it difficult for Rangers the other night. And obviously, I think both teams cancelled each other out. But from this week's form, Celtic playing on Thursday, Rangers playing Wednesday, Celtic in the forward areas are looking very
I think there's more fluency. The synergy's better between...
More dynamic?
Well, it's probably because it's more consistent.
Right.
Because it's more consistent, very seldom does Ange Postecoglou change his front line. He changes 1 or 2 here and there, but he normally goes with the same players all the time, which is maybe why Alexa Rogic is getting had a knock. Why Jota's tying up, because he's asking the same players to go and do the same things continue, whereas Rangers have chopped and changed and still have to get that right dynamic.
Heading into the weekend, and Celtic trailing Rangers by 4 at the top of the Premiership. Celtic at Tannadice on Sunday, Rangers at home to Dundee tomorrow. Another hour of football chat on the way.
Where do taxi drivers go when they need to buy a taxi? Well, the Taxi Centre have supplied cars to the trade for over 20 years, and they stock a huge range of motors from the world's leading manufacturers: Skoda, Kia, Toyota, Mercedes, Nissan, Ford, Hyundai, you name it. They've got saloons, MPVs, estates, minibuses, prestige cars. cars, the lot, all under one roof. Ready for immediate collection or free delivery anywhere on the mainland UK. With Taxi Trade exclusive discounts, flexible finance options and no hidden fees. They even throw in registration and 12 months road tax. So if you're a taxi driver who needs a new or used taxi, where would you go? TheTaxiCentre.com. Trade only.
The Go Radio Football Show with TheTaxiCentre.com. Don't miss out on huge savings on your new taxi. Available exclusively to the taxi trade. Let's go!
Yeah, we've just come off some pretty frantic midweek action and we're bang into the weekend as well. In fact, there's football tonight. There's Inverness Cali Thistle against Kilmarnock in a very tight championship. There's just a point between them. Billy Dodd's Cali Thistle on 28. Kilmarnock are joint top of the championship on 29 with Wraith Rovers. So Inverness against Kilmarnock, and in League 2 Edinburgh City against Annan is being played tonight. Then it's into the Premiership games. Aberdeen St Mirren, Hibs Motherwell, Rangers Dundee, St Johnstone, Ross County. And on Sunday, Dundee United Celtic, followed by Livingston against Hearts. In terms of the championship, tomorrow, Arbroath against Wraith Rovers, Hamilton play Dunfermline, Morton against Ayr United, and Queen of the South against Partick Thistle. So those are the games coming up on the back of a big one at Celtic Park last night, which is sparked a whole lot of talking, starting with the two managers immediately afterwards, of course, and Robbie Neilson less than happy.
Honestly, man, nobody cares, do they? Let's be honest. Just move on, don't we? That's what happens in football. You get fill a couple of lines in the morning and it's Livingston Sunday, so there's no point talking about it now. If I said my piece after we were at Ibrox and I get, had to write a report to say what I meant by it and I get chased up about it, can't be bothered doing it anymore, to be honest with you. It's football in Scotland. On to Sunday now. That's the way it goes. We need to come here and play doubly well to get the points.
Can't be bothered doing it anymore. Robbie Neilson sounding decidedly cheesed off there last night. And, yes, of course, he felt wronged by the decision-making process on the goal. But what's also probably happening in his head at that point is those chances in the second half that weren't taken. And as we were saying before the news, maybe had Hearts equalised, they'd have gone on to win the game. And also maybe the fact that it was a game where if Hearts had got something out of it, they felt as if they were staying in touch at the top, whereas losing the game, suddenly there's a 5-point differential between second and third, and Celtic have got an extra game to play as well.
It's because he feels so wronged. He's adamant about the decision, and that's the thing that will stick in his gut. And I said it earlier, as much as Celtic had possession and they had chances, they didn't score them. So Robbie's looking at it and thinking, irrespective of how well we played or how well we didn't play, the one moment that separates the teams, he thought could have went his way. Angie's come out and just said, well, we played well, we were the better team, but that doesn't mean to say you deserve to win the game. Sorry, not deserve. It doesn't mean to say you win the game just because you're the better team and you had the most chances. For all their play and all their interplay and changing and best players in the pitch, they didn't get the goal. A legitimate goal in Robbie's eyes. And you can tell he's still carrying over from the Ibrox debacle as well when he was pulled up in front of the beak. So something's just bugging away at him. And he wants to say things, but he has to bite his tongue because it'll cost him a few quid.
One of your old teams, of course, Hearts, Neil. What are they capable of, do you think, from here on? I mean, they've got off to a great start. If you'd given them 27 points from 16 games at this stage, they would have bitten your hand off. Probably maybe a bit disappointed with some of the results in recent weeks, but they're still up there if they can kick on from here. And you would imagine last night's performance, not the result, but the performance would give them some hope.
Well, it just goes to show the expectations that Robbie has on his team. He's disappointed going to Celtic Park and not getting anything from it. He felt like they've had chances, they were hard done to with a goal, but he probably is disappointed that they never got something out of the game after all the work they've done. So that's why I'll be bitterly disappointed. But Hearts over the course of the season, Hearts should be finishing third. Outside Old Firm, they're a fantastic club, huge club, great support. They've probably got the third biggest budget, maybe alongside Aberdeen, maybe between them and Aberdeen. Great squad, young, vibrant, lots of pace, lots of energy, lots of flair, and he's made some great signings. So I can see them challenging. Okay, there's a wee bit of a gap, opening up now, and I think that's why I'd be disappointed as well, because he would want to keep as close to Celtic as he can. But listen, there's still a long way to go, and there's still points to be won and lost. So, he'll be happy where they are. He'll be delighted. They've got off to a decent start. Obviously, big game on Saturday. They've got a fairly decent December, where there's games that they can go. Obviously, they're home to Rangers, sorry. But they've got games that they think they'll be thinking, I can take maybe 12 points out of 15 in December.
A good start to December for Celtic, winning that one last night by 1-0, but still 8 more games for them to come this month, including a cup final as well. And maybe some of it is going to come down to personnel, who's available, who's not, who's in, who's out. They suffered some injuries last night, and of course they had Tom Rogic and Carl Starfelt back in after 5 weeks out.
It's not just the work we do with the players, but the work we're doing with the guys who are coming back to make sure that they're ready, because it's not easy to come into our side. We play very high tempo. It's very demanding on the body, so the guys have to be ready to go. And the backroom staff, medical team, sports science, all the coaches are doing a lot of great work with these guys. So it's great to see them come in and sort of slip into it so well. As I said, Tommy was never supposed to play 90 today, but obviously with the injuries, we had to make a call on him to keep playing. We're going to need it. It's not just about 11 players for sure. We're going to need a whole squad to get through this series of games.
Are there fears of burnout here with the demands on these players being so great, Craigs?
Yeah, and probably it's based on the depth that Celtic have. Celtic probably, to watch, are probably the best team in the league at the minute with regards free-flowing football and open and attractive. But very seldom does Ange Postecoglou change his 11. He maybe bring in Forrest instead of Ibarra, but the rest of it, Rogic will come in instead of Beaton. But the rest of it doesn't really change an awful lot. So you're asking the same players every 3 or 4 days to go and put in a dynamic performance, go and give everything you've got. And that takes its toll after a little while. Rangers probably have more strength and depth, whereas if they make subs in the game, it might enhance them or it might just keep it level. Whereas Celtic don't have the same quality. You lose Jota and you're bringing on Mikey Johnson, who will be, no doubt, probably a good player in the future when it comes. I mean, he's 21 or 22, so he's not a young boy anymore, but he's not at the same level as Jota.
No.
So suddenly you lose that. If you lose Jota for Sunday, I think Celtic are a weaker team without Jota in the team. That's clear to say. But then because you're playing so many of the same players all the time, when you bring Adam Montgomery in, he's not playing an awful lot. You bring in James McCarthy, he can't get into the team, so he's struggling. Mikey Johnson can't get into the team, so he's playing a bit part player. Even Sorrell, if you bring him in, they haven't been playing regularly at that kind of tempo and intensity. So because you're sticking with the same 12, 13 players all the time, you've got 12 or 13 players where you want them to be, but you've got 6 or 7 below who are nowhere near that kind of level. So that's why when you make changes, there's a little bit of an imbalance. But it's 8 games, Neil said, 8 games they've got. It's not as if they've got 3 or 4 until the winter split. 8. And that's a lot of legwork. Although they play at home to Real Betis, I would imagine a lot of those guys in the Europa League against Real Betis won't play in the game. I don't mean it'll be brushed over, but they need to think of bigger league games and a cup final coming up before the winter shutdown.
Cameron Carter-Vickers back for Sunday?
Yeah, he'll be right for Sunday. And Greg Taylor is not for Sunday, but definitely next week he'll be back in it too, which is good.
So that is good news for Celtic that Greg Taylor is back on the scene for them. So they're losing them, they're getting a few back. And do you feel that December is a massive month, maybe the month of the season for Celtic in some ways? Because if they can stay in touch, stay close, do what they're doing up till the January window, that's going to be the chance, Neil, to get the reinforcements in they need so that he can freshen up the team a little bit more.
Listen, it's a big month for every team out there. It's a big month for Rangers as well. They've got quite a lot of games. But for Celtic, it's huge. Especially at this time of year, with the games that Celtic have coming up, this is where it's so important to have a big squad. Boys that can come in and not affect the team, just go like for like with whatever's in. And Celtic can't afford to be dropping any points, because if Rangers go on a run and keep winning, Celtic are constantly playing catch up, and they can't let that gap get too far away before January. January is going to be a huge month for Celtic in terms of who they'll be allowed to sign, who they can bring in, to try and bolster their squad. I think obviously depending on injuries that might play a part, but defensively you might want to look and bring in a few just to solid up that defence. But yeah, this is a key month for every club. I mean, this for every team, in the whole division. This can be, a huge month for Ross County. Can they get out? St Johnstone not been doing too well, so it's a big month for everyone. A lot of games and a lot of twists and turns, and a lot of points can be won and lost.
Yeah, just looking at the league table at the moment, the Premiership, Rangers 36, Celtic 32, then it's Hearts 27, Dundee United on 25, Motherwell 24 on the back of that win. We were there on Tuesday night. Craig's great goal by Tony Watt, wasn't it, to win it in the sometimes bizarre conditions. It was tipping it down. Hibs on 18. They're level on points with Aberdeen, which is kind of remarkable when you think about how much Aberdeen have struggled so far this season. But then you look at Hibs' recent league record. Maybe their recent record is camouflaged a bit by the semi-final win, because they've lost 6 of their last 7 in the Premiership. You just think, even with a few points out in that spell, they would be up much closer to Hearts and Dundee United.
And I think it just puts even more pressure on tomorrow. Home against Motherwell. That's a fixture the Hibs fans will look at and think, we should be winning that. We have to win it. So they have been quite patient probably up till now, the Hibs fans. And I'm not putting pressure on anybody, it's a fact that Hibs and Hearts are big demanding clubs who expect to win games of football, as are Aberdeen. I think they probably carry more expectation and more pressure than clubs in the bottom half of the table. That's just a fact of life. So they will be looking at Motherwell tomorrow, and if they can't go out and arrest that poor league form, you would think questions will start to be asked, or people will start to become frustrated, noise will start to grow. So it's a huge game for Hibs in that aspect, whereas Motherwell probably coming off one of their best performances of the season. You think, can they go and replicate what they've done on Tuesday? We spoke about it on Tuesday at the Game Road, didn't we, about consistency, but they've won 3 out of 4. I think it's just because they were so bad against Dundee, then people question consistency. But if they can back up that performance that they had at Fir Park on Tuesday, plus they've had an extra day's rest ahead of the game, you would think they could go there and easily win that game. They've done it last year. I think they went and won 2-0. Jordan Roberts was unknown from Hearts and got the second goal. So there's no reason why Motherwell can't go and win the game. And if they do, then I think it just increases the hype and the pressure around Hibs' poor form.
Yeah, I think the semi-final one against Rangers has sort of papered over the cracks a wee bit and given Jack Ross a bit of breathing room, because everyone's talking about how well they did. They've got a cup final to look forward to, but as Stephen says, 6 defeats in the last 7, that's worrying for a team like Hibs, especially after how well they did last season. They should be up there, challenging third place. But yeah, massive game tomorrow, Motherwell, but then they've got Livingston away, St Mirren away, and then Dundee at home. So there's 4 games that the Hibs players, Hibs management will be expecting to take maximum points, and they're maybe thinking, well, we can get out of this poor run and get some back-to-back wins. Yeah,
I mean, the problem for them might be that semi-final win tends to camouflage some really poor league results of late. And the other worry for them will be that the cup final takes away from league games as well. Everybody's thinking about getting in the cup final team, and winning a trophy.
Yeah, it does happen. It can be on the back of players' minds. They might think twice about going in for a 50-50 tackle, about doing something they wouldn't normally even think about doing, because they're so desperate to get in that cup final 11 to get on that pitch, and it does sort of take away from the league form a wee bit, because all the media, all the expectation for the cup, everyone's looking forward to it. So that could play a part, but there's 4 games that Hibs will think we need to win these 4 games and get back to winning ways and get up the table.
Yeah, with Martin Boyle and Kevin Nisbet and Christian Doidge is back on the scene now, and Chris Cadden down the sides, and Joe Newell. They've got a lot of good players. They shouldn't be a mid-table team.
No, they shouldn't be. But the fact is that's where they are based on the results that have went against them. They've lost games they probably feel they shouldn't have been losing. Going to Ross County, for example, after the League Cup semi-final, and thinking, right, okay, this will be a real test of can they maintain those level of performances, and Ross County then go and get themselves a 1-0 victory. So it's a real psychological and mental test for these players. They're going to have to show resilience, and Motherwell tomorrow go in there going to say, let's go and play the game in their half. Don't pass about in our half and encourage them to come and press. Don't let them off the hook. The Hibs fans will be waiting to go tomorrow. If Motherwell get the first goal, they'll be desperate to raise their voice and be restless, and Motherwell will have to know that. So they will desperately get the first goal, play in their half, force them facing their own goal, make it a really ugly, horrible, scrappy game, and see if they have the fight and desire to come through it. See if they have the real resilience to get through that type of game. If they get in front, I think the shoulders relax a little bit, they start enjoying themselves, but it's certainly not going to be a straightforward win, that's for sure.
It's a surprise to see Hibs in mid-table. It's also a surprise to see St Johnstone third from bottom. Now, they play Ross County tomorrow. Craigs is there. And if Ross County were to win that one, and it's not unthinkable that they would win it, then they would go level on points with St Johnstone, Neil, which is incredible, just when you consider what St Johnstone did in the 2 cup competitions last season.
Yeah, they've set such high expectations off of last year. You know, they massively probably overachieved. I think they would admit that himself. And they've just not lived up to that. I think, you know, they've got a really good team. Obviously lost one or two key players, but they've still got the nucleus of a really good squad. But no wins in 4 games. It's worrying times. They've failed to score in 8 of the last 15 games. And they've only scored 9 goals this season, which is the lowest in the league. So, you know, that tells you, I think, that in forward areas they're just struggling to put the ball in the back of the net, which is the biggest thing in football. You know, they've got some massive games coming up. They know they've got a tough December with, you know, Aberdeen, Rangers and Celtic within 3 of the 5 games they've got. But tomorrow's game against Ross County is a must win. They must be picking up points and change their luck.
It's going to be interesting to see what Dundee can do at Ibrox tomorrow, isn't it? Because they've won their last 2. They've beaten Motherwell and St Johnstone, and it's incredible at the bottom of the table what 6 points out of 6 does. As 1 minute they're locked together with Ross County, suddenly they're above both Livingston and St Johnstone. But this is a massive test for them tomorrow.
Well, it's huge for them, but you know, I'm not saying it's a free hit. I hear people using that kind of phrase, it's a free hit, but they can go and go and attack the game. And it's the one thing of James McPake, he always sets his teams up to go and try and win games. You know, they lost 6th against Celtic, they lost 5 against Ross County. St Johnstone beat them 3-1 at McDermott Park and they were awful. They scored a late goal to make it 3-1. But it doesn't deter them. You know, they keep coming back, they keep wanting the ball. Danny Mullen's got himself, I think he's got 3 in his last 3. And Danny Mullen was always a striker, I always felt, who was a scorer of good goals. Not a good goal scorer, you know, whereas he's got 3 in his last 3. So, you know, with the likes of Charlie Adam, who can make things happen, he got good passing range. It'll be an interesting test for him tomorrow on the big pitch. Can he get about midfield as much as what he used to? Well, that'll be, you know, up for question tomorrow. But certainly, they have to go there with confidence and belief. They have to go and take part in the game. Don't go and sit back and hope not to get beat. If that's the case, inevitably you end up getting beat. So if they can continue, I think it's 3 wins out of 4 for them as well. Go and attack the game. Go and have a go at it. Rangers will be tired. Rangers will be fatigued just as much as Dundee are. Go and have a go at the game.
Stephen Craig and Neil Alexander, Rob McLean talking football.
The Go Radio Football Show with the taxicentre.com. Don't miss out on huge savings on your new taxi. Available exclusively to the taxi trade. Let's go.
Heading into the weekend with Glasgow's own Go Radio, the football show for a Friday, and about half an hour or so still to go. Looking ahead to Rangers against Dundee at Ibrox tomorrow, Hibs against Motherwell, Aberdeen St Mirren, St Johnstone against Ross County, Celtic are at Tannadice on Sunday. I think one of the stands is closed on the back of half of it falling off the other day. So for safety reasons, there will be 3 stands in use on Sunday. And Livingston against Hearts, and maybe just a feeling that could be an awkward one for Hearts, bearing in mind all they poured into last night at Celtic Park.
Absolutely, and it's the one thing Livingston tests you off is your appetite for the game. Even though they're not as big and as physical as what they once were under Gary Holt, they still have a lot of high energy players, Livingston, who get about the game and snap into tackles and put you under pressure. You know, traditionally on that artificial surface, whether people like it or not, you don't get many good games. It's normally scrappy and bitsy. So Hearts will have to deal with that. You know, as I said, they've been to Pittodrie and lost. They've been to Fir Park and lost, and now lost away at Celtic. So Robbie, if they want to challenge for that 3rd place and stay in 3rd place, they have to learn how to win away from home. Win ugly, win when they're not playing well. But I think it's Livingston 5 games without a win. You know, and just when you thought they'd turned the corner and they got away from it, they're now starting to come back into it. And if Ross County win tomorrow against St Johnstone, they go off the bottom. Livingston go bottom because Livingston don't play to Sunday. So they'll know their fate come the game time. But ultimately, Davey won't worry about that just now. But he will want some sort of response from his players, because you said they were poor during the week against Aberdeen. So they need a response. Otherwise, they're going to be involved in a dogfight at the bottom.
And yet last weekend they were pretty decent in the game, because they were 2 down early on against Rangers, came back, scored 1, could have scored another. Alan McGregor had a wonder save to stop it being all square at half time. It ended up losing 3-1, but they had that great spell in the game where they showed exactly what they're capable of doing, Neil. Yeah,
listen, going to Livingston is a hard place to go on that surface. I don't think any of the Premiership teams enjoy going there. You know, it's just a battle, it's a scrap. You know, you've got to go and really earn your 3 points there. And, you know, Livingston have relied on their home form over the last sort of 3 or 4 years, and that's why they've done so well. And obviously they've been struggling of late, but they will be thinking they've got 3 home games out of their next 4, and Davey will be thinking that they need to start picking up their home form, picking up some points to get out of the bit of the rut they're in. But, Hearts will fancy it. Hearts will be thinking there's a chance to get another 3 points. They'll go there, full of confidence after the performance at Parkhead. Obviously not the result. But listen, it's always a hard game when you go to Livingston, so it will be scrappy. It'll be a bit of a cup tie. Both teams desperate for the points, so it should be a good game.
The dust still settling on that game last night and that big decision. Was it offside? Was it onside? Well, it was given, and it was Kyogo's 14th of the season, and it was the only goal of the game. And Celtic stayed 4 points behind Rangers in the Premiership. But as ever, the talking points come around. VAR is being much spoken about on the back of that. And when Giovanni van Bronckhorst held his media conference today, the subject of full-time referees also came up.
I think sometimes maybe it's not easy for refs because they have their normal jobs and then have to officiate games. So in an ideal world, of course, I think if you speak to the refs as well, they would be much better if they can have the full-time jobs because they can do what they love. But for me, it's always better to have full-time officials.
How do you feel about that, Craigs, full-time referees?
My point about it previously has been that just because you go full-time, it doesn't make to say that you can see things better. It may make them slightly fitter, but I would imagine those guys are training 4 or 5 nights a week. They're not just training 1 or 2 nights and hoping it works on a Saturday. Their fitness levels, can they get any fitter? Possibly. Whether they look at things differently, analyse games a bit better, maybe that's more to the point, that they can speak about teams and players and patterns within games, because they can be able to study teams and see what the kind of pattern is, so they almost not have an idea of the game before they arrive to it, but they've thought about it during the week, have watched certain players. If someone always goes down easy, that's something to keep an eye on. They can probably go a little bit deeper in the other aspects of the game. Is it just referees, or is it referees' assistants? Because surely they're part of a refereeing team.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So suddenly then you'd have to employ 50, 60 people probably. Is there finances that, we can't get VAR in to help them. I think first of all, get VAR to help them. And then if we feel full-time referees after that, plus we'd have a window. Referees don't referee for 30 years. Is it worthwhile if somebody got a teaching job or they own their business? Would it be viable for them? So there's lots of things to take into consideration. If it was as simple as let's make them full-time and all problems will go away, well then let's do it. But I think there's bigger problems too.
Yeah, there's a difference between part-time players and full-time players, obviously, and a better standard is expected of a full-time player to a part-time player. Would the same not apply to referees, Neil?
Well, you'd like to think so, yeah, definitely. I'm in favour of it. Anything I think we can do to make the game better. Obviously, if we're going the whole hog and getting VAR, let's get the referees in full time. And I'm not just saying get them in running every day, or getting their eyes tested every day. It's a case of maybe even sitting down all together on a Monday morning, Tuesday, and looking at video analysis, looking at the games, looking at the decisions they made, explaining why they made them decisions, and maybe get a different point of view from other referees or anyone else, and saying, well, this is what I would have done. Just get different scenarios, different reactions, different opinions, and it's going to make their learning of the whole game, how they see things, a bit better. And if that improves them 5-10%, then that's better for Scottish football, and that's what we want. We want a better product, and if VAR's coming in, which is going to make Scottish football better, more professional, let's be more professional with the referees. Give them a chance to improve. Give them the time, because I'm sure they're going to work and they're coming home and maybe going to the gym, doing a run or whatever. Give them the time where they can, through the week, they can spend time watching decisions, watching games, analysing their own performance, analysing other referees, even abroad down south, get why they make the decisions they make, get into the positions that they do. And at the end of the day, that's going to help everybody. If you can make the referees slightly better, then it's going to help everyone.
Can you imagine a full-time referee getting the decision wrong? Do you know how much he's getting every single game? And he can't get that. It just opens another cynical avenue for people to go down when things don't go well. But, I think Neil and I are on the same wavelength. It's not just about on the pitch and being fit. It's about other aspects of the game and how they can learn. The only thing about football is, it changes quickly and decisions happen during games. How much money would they get paid? Is it worthwhile for people to give up jobs? Yeah, all these things come into it.
But if you're asking for a full-time commitment, then obviously you're going to have to pay more for it, and maybe then you're going to attract more people to refereeing.
Possibly, yeah. So where does it come from? That's the other aspect.
You might lift the standard because actually more people want to do it because it's not part-time. It can be your full-time job.
Yeah, your occupation. But you just wonder then where that finance comes from. Does that come from the SFA? Do the clubs have to invest more in that to try and get full-time refs? Do they get a sponsor? Does UEFA get involved or FIFA? If they have, is there a possibility for grants to help full-time referees. You'd imagine they've looked at all that. They've investigated it all. And with Hugh Dallas, who certainly was involved with UEFA or FIFA, you wonder just, would he be looking to push something like that? Because if it's a viable option, then absolutely, let's go for it.
But as usual, the pound signs might have the final say. What will be the pound signs surrounding the transfer market for Rangers in the window in January? Will there be outgoings? Will Rangers keep what they have and hope they're going to get that bonanza at the end of the season and a route into the Champions League? Or is there a pressure to sell if Giovanni Van Bronckhorst wants to buy? You would imagine he's had those discussions before he took the job. He was asked today about the window.
Well, I don't know yet. It's a difficult one, of course, as a coach, I've had many transfer windows. It's hard to predict what will happen, because anything can happen. I know that, but the most important thing is to be prepared in whatever comes, and that's where all the work will have to be done in now until the transfer window opens. But it can go either way. But hopefully, at the end of the window, we have a better squad than when the transfer window opens, maybe.
He did well there. He'd managed to turn no comment into about 40 seconds there. Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, non-committal, I think is the phrase that comes to mind on that one. What do you think, Neil? What do you think?
I don't believe him. I don't believe what he said. I don't believe that he doesn't know what he's got. He knows exactly what, if he has got the chance to bring in players, how much he's got, who needs to go. He'll know everything.
Because that's bound to have been spoken about.
Of course it is. Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't come into that job with, blindfolded. He wants to know everything before he commits himself to that job. Under Steven Gerrard, I would probably have said maybe Rangers might have been able to bring in one player, but obviously bringing in a new manager, he'll have new ideas, new players that he wants to bring in to strengthen his squad. So he might get, the purse strings might get maybe loosened a wee bit. He might bring in 2 or 3, but he might be told to get rid of 2 or 3, to bring in 2 or 3. You just don't know, but he'll definitely know what he needs to do.
It's all about winning the league. So it's a matter of. Is it a matter of what Celtic are doing as well? Looking across the city and wondering how much Celtic are going to man up in terms of their squad and what Rangers can do to an already strong and deep squad. And even in terms of numbers, Craigs, do they have to be thinking about squeezing 1 or 2 out before getting 1 or 2 in?
Well, I was just writing down some names there as he was speaking. Bakuna wasn't even in the matchday squad last night. Ranjak wasn't in the matchday squad. So not that Ranjak's going to move on, but if he comes back into it, then someone else has to drop out.
He's going to be involved tomorrow incidentally, tomorrow afternoon in some shape or form. Yeah.
Jack Simpson, Scott Wright, Brandon Barker, Stephen Kelly, John Lundstrom. Brandon
Who's faded out of the picture, hasn't he?
So suddenly you might have to streamline your squad. You might have to think, well, we'll have to move 2 or 3 on, even out in loan, get some sort of return for them, even if it's just a loan part of their wages, and then look to bring some in. But because of the system or the way they've started to play under Van Bronckhorst, I think he wants his wingers to play slightly wider. He doesn't want them playing as inverted forwards anymore. So the only real out-and-out winger they have who has played recently is Ryan Kent. So I just wonder, would he be looking for a pacey winger on the other side, which would give the back four a little bit more protection, because Barisic and Tavernier don't have to be those overlapping players all the time. Yanis Hadji can play inside. He doesn't really want to go outside. When Aribo plays on the right-hand side, he wants to come inside. So he might want a couple of players to go round the outside. You look at Jota and you look at Abada and you look at Forrest. They don't mind going round the outside of fullbacks and crossing balls into the box, whereas Rangers haven't really traditionally played that way with their wide men. So he might look for a pacey wide man. Plus then, if he wants to play with a number 10, which is what he done against Sparta Prague with Davis and Kamara with Aribo as the 10, Aribo's probably not naturally a 10. So then does he look for someone to play in that number 10 role, someone who that's their more specific position? But the players we're talking about, when Neil said it earlier with regards, Celtic look better going forward and fluency-wise and chances created. Maybe Rangers need those 2 extra players to try and bring that rhythm that Celtic have.
But it's interesting, isn't it? The recruitment process could change quite radically when one manager goes out and the other one comes in terms of the way he plays and what he wants. Suddenly Rangers are looking for the wide players that Craigs is talking about there, whereas previously it was more inside forwards.
It's a bit like a game of chess. I mean, Rangers might believe that the squad they've got just now, man for man, is better, and if Celtic don't do anything, they don't maybe need to do anything because they think, well, we're better all round. But an interesting thing might be if Steven Gerrard comes calling for a Ryan Kent or a Joe Aribo and takes him to Aston Villa, which then Rangers need to replace these, but obviously they get the money in. But if nothing that happens, they might think, well, we're okay. But they might have to, if Celtic do something, they might need to respond. because there's such a big pot at the end of the season. You know, to win the league, the prize at the end of it is so big that they might think, well, do you know what, we don't mind spending 5-10 million, because if we win the league, and that's the difference between winning the league, we might get 30-40 million back from guaranteed Champions League. So, you know, it may be worth the gamble, and you know, the money at the end of it will be worthwhile, the gamble.
I'd be surprised if Gerrard comes for Kent in January, just because I was doing something last week, I was doing some of BT, and I was watching English games, and Aston Villa have about 6 wingers, you know, and they've spent a lot of money. Is it Leon Bailey? From where'd he come from? Leon, something like 36 million. Buendia, they bought from Norwich for 35 million. So for two players, he spent 65 million. Ashley Young's now playing as a left-sided player in attack. Ollie Watkins played there last week. El Ghazi's another one. Trezeguet, who played at where did I see Trezeguet playing? He played Leon as well, possibly. You know, so you're suddenly thinking they're stocked. So you'd imagine he would have to try and move someone to try and create space. And then do the Aston Villa players look at Ryan Kent and think, well, he's the player to take us into the top 6? Because you imagine that's where Aston Villa want to be heading for, is the top 6. So whether they come now, whether they come in the summer, he may come for 1 or 2, Gerrard. He may have a nibble at 1 or 2. Nathan Patterson seems to be another one that is getting linked with him. But I wouldn't bank on Gerrard coming for any Rangers players in January.
Do you think that could happen, Neil? Do you think Nathan Patterson, could there be an auction in January? I mean, I think Everton have already been quoted with an interest. I mean, Steven Gerrard is bound to have an interest because he was raving about him when he was Rangers manager.
Yeah, there's always going to be speculation with these players, especially with the Steven Gerrard link and Steven Gerrard leaving to go to a big English club with a big budget. You know, maybe a lot of people feel that he can afford what Rangers are looking for these players. As I say, I can agree with Steven. I don't think Steven Gerrard will come calling just yet. I think he'll want to assess his own squad. As he said, he's got plenty of wingers. He'll have loads of talent down there, so he'll want to assess what he's got before he makes any rash decisions. He'll know what's up here, and he might know that I'll just wait patiently, maybe see their contract run down, and then maybe get them at the last minute, get them a bit cheaper. He won't want to pay over the odds. But Rangers have got some good young quality, so they'll want to keep a hold of them rather than letting them go as well.
He was asked about bringing defenders in today.
Well, we have to see how it will develop the coming weeks. Of course, the transfer window will open, so we are discussing what has to be done. But so far, nothing has decided yet in bringing some new players in defence.
I don't know what Dutch is for playing a straight bat, but he's certainly demonstrating it there as he fields all those questions. Naturally, he's not going to give anything away about what Rangers are going to do in the window. But defensively, well, he'll know what's happening with Connor Goldson at the moment. Discussions ongoing. He told us earlier Ross Wilson is still in contact with Goldson's agent about whether he's going to depart at any stage. Phil Highlander is coming back from injury. I think Leon Balogun's on his way back, but maybe he won't be involved tomorrow. So resources are a bit thin, aren't they, central defensive wise? And
he's got Jack Simpson, who hasn't been involved for a long time. So you'd imagine Jack Simpson would be another one who could possibly move out in January to free up some sort of money. But, if you get Highlander back and Balogun fit and Golson fit, I think you've got enough there, because you've got Calvin Bassey, you've got potentially Jack Simpson. So you'd imagine 1 or 2 would have to move on before they strengthen that area.
This is the Go Radio Football Show on a Friday, looking ahead to a big Premiership weekend.
The Go Radio Football Show with the taxicentre.com. Don't miss out on huge savings on your new taxi. Available exclusively to the taxi trade. Let's go.
Ange Postecoglou wasn't over-impressed last night with Robbie Nielsen's comments after the match, after Celtic beat Hearts 1-0, when the Hearts head coach suggested that they'd not been beaten by Celtic, they'd been beaten by the referee and his officials. And the response from the Celtic gaffer was that his team could have won by considerably more than 1 goal had they taken all their chances. They have to be more ruthless, he says.
Pleased with generally the performance, pleased with the result, obviously. A bit frustrated because our sort of finishing in the front third was, we just need to be a bit more ruthless. We need to put teams away for our dominance, and we didn't, so we kind of kept them in the game a little bit all the way through. Having said that, we still defended well. I mean, I think Joe had one real sort of outstanding save to make, so it's good signs from a defensive point of view. But yeah, just frustrated because, like I said, I thought we could have been a bit more ruthless in the front third.
Everybody's been talking about whether the goal should have been given or not given. We've been talking on the show about the fact that Jota in recent times has overshadowed Kyogo, but it's his 14th goal of the season so far for the Japanese striker, Neil. And if he keeps up that sort of strike rate, I mean, he's going to be 25 to 30, isn't he, in the campaign?
He's been, a breath of fresh air. From minute one when he came in, and he was getting Celtic win after win after win almost by himself, single-handedly getting them up the table. Obviously Jota's got better as the games have come on, and the two of them are just fantastic pairing together. It must be a joy for a Celtic fan to go and watch them play week in, week out, and the goals return that they're getting. You want to get them on long-term contracts. They're massive players for Celtic.
He looks quite a durable sort of character as well, Kyogo. He seems to bounce off people at times. He's not the biggest, but he seems to quite like the rough and tumble.
He does, and it always amazes me how he finds space in the box. I've said that previously, that
especially when he's offside.
Yeah, especially when he gets 4 yards, it's free in the box. There's nobody near him. But just when the penalty box is congested, and he scored a goal at Dundee where the penalty box was congested, yet the smallest player in the box manages to find a little bit of space. So he's a clever footballer, there's no doubt about it. And even last night at times, I think Hearts had a corner, the ball came to the edge of the box, he pressed someone, it went back to Michael Smith in the halfway line, he pressed him as well, and went back to Craig Gordon. So he instigates a lot of the pressing moves. He drags players with him. So often he's been the instigator, he's been the catalyst for players to think, well, he's chasing, I'm locking in. He sets off the press an awful lot what he does. But he's so dynamic in behind. He's quick, he's sharp, he's always alert. He's got involved with a couple of players over the past few weeks. And some opposing players aren't happy how he's falling about and he's getting involved. But I think he's just now starting to realise in Scotland you have to stand up for yourself sometimes. Yeah. So he's not frightened to give a little bit out, and he takes plenty, let's be honest. But certainly he's a smashing football player.
Yeah. And it would have to be some performance alongside them to overshadow him, and that's exactly what's happened recently with Jota. It remains to be seen how much football he is going to miss, having gone off injured, and maybe the eye will come off the ball in a sense, because at the moment the Celtic fans are desperate to have that loan deal from Benfica turned into a permanent arrangement. And certainly over in recent weeks, I think he was 5-5 at one stage, maybe 7 goals for the season, Jota, something like that. The Celtic fans are looking at Neil at $6.5 million, which seems to be the asking price for a permanent deal. That actually looks pretty good value, doesn't it, for what he gives?
For especially nowadays with the transfer wages some people are getting valued at, that's a drop in the ocean. Obviously for Scottish football, for Celtic, it's obviously a lot of money, but when you're getting that kind of quality player who's going to score you maybe 15-20 goals a season and going to create a lot for your teammates around you, it's money very well spent, and that money could be the difference between you getting in the Champions League automatically and in the Europa League. So it's a no-brainer for me. He's proved how good he is. He's proved that he's finding Scottish football enjoyable. He's expressing himself, and for just Scottish football in general, to have something like that in Scotland, the two of them just for Scottish football, it's fantastic, and it's the longer he's in Scottish football, the better for us.
I'm not sure for entertainment. I'm not too sure the Jota deal is as simple as straightforward as Celtic have agreed a fee, so if they pay it happens. The player then still would have to agree personal terms and say, this is where I want to come to. Yeah. So if he turned around and said, well, actually, I've got a team in England who might want to take me, then I'm going to refuse the transfer. Benfica then would go and negotiate with someone else. And so that's, as far as I'm aware, it's not as simple and straightforward as we have that locked in. That's the fee. He can't go anywhere. We have him imprisoned. He's coming. He's going to be a Celtic player. He would still, along with his agents, have to agree personal terms and agree the contract and agree a buyout clause, for him to go and sign for Celtic. So it's I wouldn't say it's all signed and sealed, that if Celtic agree, there's other things to take place.
And I would be surprised if there is clubs down in England monitoring his progress, because he has done exceptionally well, and there'll be teams thinking, we could do with him. And listen, Scottish teams can't compete with what the English teams can pay. They can double his wages, they can double the price tag if they want, and he might be using Celtic as a stepping stone, being in the shop window, looking to try and get down south, because listen, everybody wants to go and play in the English Premiership.
I think we don't.
But for Celtic to get it done and get it done quickly, before if they can get it tied up quickly before an English team comes sniffing, then I would really encourage them to do that, and I'm sure they are.
I think we'd all like to see the small print, wouldn't we? Because we're very much aware of the Jack Hendry deal that went against Celtic.
Yeah, but Jack Hendry agreed to terms because he knew he was moving on somewhere else.
Yeah.
Jack Hendry probably wouldn't have went and signed and played another season at Ostend. But because he knew Bruges were coming in, that deal's probably already struck. Whenever which we knew it, if we buy him for the agreed fee of £1 million, £2 million, whatever it is, we're going to sell you for £6, right? That's fine. I'm going to sign for them because I'm moving to them. So that's why it was all agreed. Whereas the Celtic one's slightly different. If Jack Hendry hadn't agreed to go to Ostend full time, he wouldn't have ended up in Bruges.
Yeah, and you were talking about the differential in wages between Scottish Premiership and even English Championship, and that's probably or Premiership where Jota to go to the Premiership. But it got me thinking about John Souttar when you were talking, because that's probably the very reason John Souttar will want this next deal for him to be the right one, because of his medical history, apart from anything else, and that might be the reason that Rangers or Celtic can't get him.
And listen, at the end of the day, it's a job. You get paid for doing something you're good at, and you've got a certain skill, and you've got a family to provide for, and you've got to live the rest of your life. Footballers' career is only a short spell. When you retire, an outfield player retires maybe 34, 35 years of age, you've got a lot of the rest of your life to live. If you can financially have the money behind you because you've went down to England and got big wages and a big signing on fee, and that sets you up for the rest of your life, you can't really disagree with a player taking that option. Obviously, every fan would like a John Souttar, every club, and for him to dedicate himself to Hearts for the next 10 years and play for Hearts for the rest of his life. But it's not going to happen. These players, they've got mortgages, they've got bills to pay, and if they can get more money, double their money down south, they're going to take that option. It's a job at the end of the day.
I asked Craigs this question earlier on, Neil. Is it Rangers and Celtic pulling away at the moment? Is that trend going to continue through December and beyond the turn of the year?
Yeah, I think so. It was always going to happen. It was great having Hearts. Dundee United have started really well. You thought Hibs would have been in the mix as well, trying to close the gap. But they're so strong, and they're just getting better as the weeks go on. And if they do both strengthen in January, it's just going to be a 2-horse race again. I don't think it'll be as one-sided as it was last year. I don't think any one team will win it by 25, 30 points. I think it's going to be a lot closer this season.
Let's get your predictions on the 6 Premiership games before we go. Starting with Aberdeen, St Mirren tomorrow, Craigs.
Well, St Mirren really struggling for goals. I watched them on Wednesday night against Ross County, and for all the play and all the balls in the box, I was never convinced they were going to score. So I would say an Aberdeen narrow home victory 1-0.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah, would have said the same.
Home win for Aberdeen against St Mirren. Hibs against Motherwell. We've spoken about it in the course of the show. What's your idea of a scoreline there, Craigs?
I think Motherwell get a point. I think they've got enough about them to go there and upset Hibs and grin about them and be a threat from set plays, be physical, and they've got pace up front with Woolery. And if Tony Watt can keep his form up, then absolutely, I think Motherwell will get a point there tomorrow. No idea what it'll be.
Is the trend going to continue for Hibs in terms of league results?
I'm going to go Motherwell win. Right. I was really, really impressed with the Motherwell front three against Dundee United. I thought they caused them so many problems. And with Tony Watt in goal scoring form, he's always, he's got a goal in him. So Hibs are struggling a wee bit. Obviously, they've got the firepower up front of Boyle and Nisbet, and can always, cause you problems. But I'm just going to make Motherwell 1-0. I'm
going to stick with you because you're going to be watching that game tomorrow. Rangers Dundee.
Yeah, Rangers. I've no doubts about it. I think Rangers, especially at home, quite comfortable. I think maybe 3-0.
No surprises at Ibrox, Craigs?
No, I don't think so. I think it'll be a real test for the Dundee back four. I know Liam Fontaine came in during the week. I think Rand Sweeney played there as well. So they will come under all sorts of pressure. The important thing, the interesting thing will be what team Giovanni Van Bronckhorst picks. Will he go Morelos again, or will he bring Kemar Roof back?
In Perth, could St Johnstone finish at bottom of the Premiership?
I hope so. Just because I want Ross County to win. Yeah, I do a little bit of work for them. I watch what Malky's doing. They're improving. 3 clean sheets in their last 5. They're picking up points. They're back in the pack. So tomorrow's not a defining day, but it's a big day for them. Psychologically, if they could get a win tomorrow in Perth, that would give them so much belief to kick on. So
is that the one for you? Is that the result for you?
I'm going to go for a away win.
Neil, on that one?
For me, that's got 0-0 written all over it.
Yeah, enjoy, Craigs.
It's got a draw. I'm saying a draw. Big. It's a massive game. It's a must win for both, but a must not lose for both as well. I can't imagine it's going to be a high scoring game. I think it'll be very, very tight game.
Okay, let's double up on Sunday. Dundee United, Celtic and Livingston Hearts, Neil.
I think Dundee United will go into the game confident. Obviously, they beat Rangers at Tannadice, and the last time they went to Parkhead, they took a point, so they won't be fearing Celtic, but I just think Celtic are too strong. So I'd fancy Celtic to win that.
Celtic and Hearts double. I think Dundee United, if they play as bad as what they did on Tuesday, it could be a heavy scoreline. I think they'll improve slightly, but I still think Celtic will have too much. Hearts will nick it by 1 goal.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks, Neil. That's it from us. Enjoy your weekend.
The Go Radio Football Show with the taxicentre.com. Don't miss out on huge savings on your new taxi. Available exclusively to the taxi trade.
Let's go.
Where do taxi drivers go when they need to buy a taxi? Well, the Taxi Centre have supplied cars to the trade for over 20 years, and they stock a huge range of motors from the world's leading manufacturers: Skoda, Kia, Toyota, Mercedes, Nissan, Ford, Hyundai, you name it. They've got saloons, MPVs, estates, minibuses, prestige cars, the lot, all under one roof, ready for immediate collection or free delivery anywhere on the mainland UK. With taxi trade exclusive discounts, flexible finance options and no hidden fees. They even throw in registration and 12 months road tax. So if you're a taxi driver who needs a new or used taxi, where would you go? TheTaxiCentre.com. Trade only.